12 folks. The child must not be tied down to doing this or the other, for we must take into consideration the subconscious of the child, which is seeking for manifestation, and that meditation will bring out all that is in the subconscious of the child. Speaking about the adolescent, right? There's been so much accumulated in the mind of the child during the previous period that he needs this solitude for 3 years in order to bring out all that he has learned. Now, that's not to say we must diminish expectations, as this would be disrespectful and damaging to the human personality. In fact, we must hold high expectations, always considering the human tendencies and psychological characteristics, and invite the adolescent to produce work of an adult standard, supported by guidance and thoughtful scaffolding. Again, as in other planes of development, we must not overhelp the adolescent, or, and this happens often in adolescent environments, communities, we cannot abandon them to work without support. They still need guidance. We must offer them only what is essential, the keys to content and skills, so they can work independently and build their self-confidence, knowing that they did the work on their own. And we always must remember that the primary work of the adolescent and the child is the work of self-construction, not the memorization of content to be produced in an examination. And we know that work in nature offers ample opportunities for the adolescent to explore intellectually, to be inspired sensorially, to be inspired socially, that then encourages them to work intellectually and really absorb what they need. Okay, emotional characteristics do not need to make anyone feel sad or anything like that, but think back to your adolescence. What did it feel like when you were an adolescent? How did you feel? What were those emotions that you associate with your adolescence? Adolescents need to create and express themselves and to build and consolidate their personalities. This activity helps them to answer the question, who am I? And through this creative work, they are creating themselves. Adolescents need opportunities to express themselves in numerous ways during this period of identity formation. Identity of gender, sexuality, philosophy, religion, politics, culture, these identities. We observe the adolescents trying on these masks as they figure out who they are becoming. And nature provides examples of creation, examples of expression, and metamorphosis for the adolescent to consider. All right, ready? One more time. You want to cast your mind back and think about your social life as a social being. Who were you as a social being as an adolescent? That right there, I'm looking at all of you, that one thing that I've just asked you to do had more smiles than anything else that I've asked you to think about. That's interesting. While you are holding on to that, think also about what were you passionate about in terms of moral issues when you were an adolescent? What provoked you? What inspired you? What was your quest? The adolescent explores social organization, how adults organize in society and collaborate to get things done. They must experience the value of their own role and contribution, as well as the value of roles and contributions of others. The new prepared environment we create must be a structured social organization, a microcosm of society with purposeful work requiring collaboration. That the adolescents are in charge of, with adults helping to guide. They are creating their community. They are creating their society. This activity strengthens the adolescent personality and works to alleviate the doubts and the hesitations an adolescent might feel about their new and unknown role in the world. The adolescent has a strong sensitivity towards justice and dignity. The second plane child was concerned with issues of fairness. We heard about this yesterday, right? The adolescent builds on that and is concerned with justice on a broader scale. This is an evolution from the ideas of interconnection of all humans introduced through cosmic education, which is primarily an intellectual understanding for the second plane child. This interconnection is now understood to be a social reality in which the adolescent plays a direct role. So adolescents need to have opportunities to take on different roles, to explore them, to live in them, and then discard them and try on new roles. Let's see if any of these roles maybe you took part in. They need to be leaders. They need to be followers. They need to be pioneers and activists and skeptics. There's probably a couple skeptics out there when you were adolescents. Collaborators, they need to be rebels, and they need to be peacemakers. Adolescents are exploring the balance between the needs of the individual and the needs of the community to which they belong. They need to have opportunities to collaborate with others, to develop the ability to tolerate ambiguity, to negotiate differences of opinion, and offer and receive true respect and compassion. In 1938, in From Childhood to Adolescence, Montessori states, the observation of nature has not only a side that is philosophical and scientific, it also has a side of social experiences that leads on to the observations of civilization and the life of men. Nature allows for the consideration and experience of social and moral development. And in fact, in the same year, 1938, in a lecture entitled Moral and Social Education, which was given at the Montessori Congress in Edinburgh, Montessori offered an example of how observation in nature can inform the adolescent about the relationship between the individual and society. And she said, we see in nature that all associations of animals are composed by different individuals. If we consider bees or ants, we must recognize that they form a society formed by different individuals who each have their own function. I mention these two examples because these insects have instincts and directed towards their own existence and social instincts as described by biologists. Now, when one of these individuals, who is later to become a part of society, develops, social instincts also develop within him. So all of this illustrates that there is no opposition between individuality and society. Each is closely related to and depends on the other. Living in nature, working with each other to support their community. The adolescents have an immediate experience of this. And in the observation of nature, they can see this playing out in the natural world and understand that it is part of those interdependencies that they are considering. Okay. People are smiling already. This is good. This is interesting. Usually when work comes up, there are no smiles, but okay. But again, this is Montessorians, so this is a little different. Cast your mind back to being an adolescent, and I'm going to say, That one word, work. The adolescent asks, who am I? What am I good at? What am I good for? They are anxious and excited about what comes next and about the role they will take. We know Montessori describes this as they're characterized by a state of expectation. The first plain child worked to achieve physical independence. That was their work, part of their work, right? The second plain child works for mental and moral independence, that intellectual independence. The social newborn works to seek economic independence as participation in a system of production, exchange, and division of labor is the essence of adult life. Montessori says the essential reform is this: to put the adolescent on the road to achieving economic independence. We might call it a school of experience in the elements of social life. Their work is to become an independent adult who can meet their own needs and who productively contributes to the interdependency of human social organization. And we know that work in community with the land is an important part of meeting this developmental task. Montessori says work on the land is an introduction both to nature and to civilization, and gives a limitless field for scientific and historic studies. If the produce can be used commercially, this brings in the fundamental mechanism of society that's production and exchange, on which economic life is based. This means that there's an opportunity to learn both academically and through actual experience what are the elements of social life. And working in nature, with the land, in community, in a social organization where they are choosing productive work together, meaningful work together, allows them to experience that element of social life. There's some thoughts sometimes that the work that is done on the land by the adolescents is, that's great. It's active. It's social. But how is this connecting to the head? How does this connect the hand to the head? And again, in the Kodaikanal essay, Montessori offers some examples for us to think about. She says, how does one earn one's own living? How does one participate in this economy? It's this element of social life. It's by working for society and by producing something useful. She says, this idea came to me especially when I was in Germany, and hence this institution received the German name of the children of the soil, Erdkinder, right? And the first idea naturally was to cultivate the land. It was agriculture, but not as we understand it, as it was something special and very scientific. A model farm in which the children could work. This is where children could put to practical use their knowledge of science, which they had acquired in the previous years of their lives. So everything gained in cosmic education, revisited again in a way that is appropriate and supports the developmental imperatives of this newborn, social newborn in another stage of development. Acquired during their knowledge of botany, of zoology, physics and chemistry, animal psychology. And so these are there are scientific ideas, and the child becomes very interested in agriculture and gets great scientific satisfaction during this period, together with the satisfaction of earning his own living. And I think we saw some examples in some of the previous presentations of different types of farm, different types of gardens, different types of land settings where work can be done. Kind of like the work that you were telling us yesterday, Shanjita, about the farm work and the farm that you bring people to go ahead and visit and understand. And regain some of the knowledge that's been lost about working with the land, but also thinking forward about how can we work with land in the future. So thank you for sharing that with us yesterday. So I hope that what I've offered is, I offer some seeds for you to consider with your thought. One thing that I know in my work is that adults are they're interested, I hope they're interested in what I have to say, but what they're really interested in is what adolescents have to say. And that is appropriate. Hearing what the adolescents have to say, because they can, especially at the end of the third plane and into the fourth plane, they've developed the powers of metacognition. They can go ahead and think about their own experience very deeply, especially when they've been prepared to do that work, particularly supported by work and living in nature. So have a little time. If it's okay, I'd like to go ahead and read to you a reflection from a young man as he was leaving the third plane and going into the fourth plane. His experience, he experienced living at the Hershey Farm in Ohio in the United States, which was a residential farm community for 12 to 15. Eventually they expanded to 15 to 18. He was there, he also was previously a Montessori child for most of his life. After he finished at the farm school, he went to the city and was at the Montessori High School in Cleveland, Ohio, which was a community of 15 to 18-year-olds, which was built with connections with the farm school. As I read this, again, I wish I could have brought him, but there was no room in my carry-on, so sorry. I mean, he's now 24, and he's a huge, strapping, 6'3" guy. It just didn't fit in my bag. But please, as I go ahead and read to you, if you could keep some points in mind. Think about what he is saying about the role of nature in his reflections. The role of work. The development of identity. And also of social life. Okay? You're welcome to go have choice. You can do all five. You can just do one. Or you can pick something else. Okay? Okay. So this is Nick. I think the bottom line of boarding, residential life, especially at middle school, that's ages 12 to 15, as you come in as a child and you leave as a self-sustaining adult.